Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the National Gallery, Singapore, on I think what is actually a very nice and warm, sunny weekend. A pleasure to have everybody here with us today. We have at least the launch of our Only Connect comic anthology. So today I am, of course, joined by Felix, and I think a lot of our fellow illustrators here. They have to launch a book, so this is actually a very happy occasion for us because it's a book that has been in a while in the making. It's actually also one of the very rare books, I think, where we at the National Gallery Singapore are also working across multiple industries with both, I think, for the literary areas and also with the illustration for comics and novels and so on. So I think that is where, I think for us, a lot of interesting learnings, a little bit of trial, and a lot of discovery. But together, I think we have hopefully a very interesting book for everyone, a very vibrant, very colorful book as well, that can reach a new generation of readers for those who are coming to the museum, and of course for those of them who are interested in the comics and in the literature field as well. So without maybe any further ado, then I will introduce Felix. Thank you, Felix.
Hello, thank you very much, Zhen Min. First of all, let me welcome Mr. Loh Eng Tiong, who is the CEO of NAC, National Arts Council. Thank you, sir, for joining us and gracing this occasion. So, my name is Felix Cheong. I'm a poet. I'm also the editor of this book, together with Jia Min and Zhen Min. So this book actually came about sometime in 2024, early part of last year. I was given the rights back for my poetry by my publishers. So I thought, what can I do with my poems now that I've gotten the rights back? And prior to this, I had done a collection of short stories with various artists, taking my collection of short stories, Vanishing Point, and having illustrators like Danny adapt them into short comics. So I thought, that's an idea. Why not I try pitching this to the National Gallery and see if I can pull together a cross-disciplinary work that transcends poetry, comics, as well as art, and see how this can come together as an interesting collaboration. So I pitched the idea to Zhen Min, who was very open to the idea. Thank you, Zhen Min. We had coffee, and soon enough, this project took off. And I contacted a whole list of illustrators. Some turned us down, said, not my kind of thing. Some said they were busy with other projects. But there were 9 different illustrators who eventually said yes. So I put together a list of poems that could be adapted into comics. And then Zhen Min helped me to put together a whole list of artworks, right? Well, were there any criteria that you chose, how you chose the artworks?
I think, at least from my side, I mostly selected works from the national collection because we felt that might be a good opportunity to let, of course, our fellow Singaporeans and even those from overseas get to know at least a few of the iconic pieces in our collection. So we selected, of course, some of the pieces that I think are quite well known to some people, but at the same time, we also selected a couple of works that were maybe less well known, but hopefully, based on the visuals, maybe a little bit of an interesting twist. That could be a challenge, I think, for the illustrators to see whether it might be something they were willing to pick up and maybe try to drive a story around it. So that was how we put it together, I think, the two of us.
So challenge is a good word because it was a big challenge for a lot of the artists. So later on, we'll have a chat with Clio as well as Danny, who will discuss the whole process in putting together these two very diverse sources of inspiration. Okay. So first, let me introduce Danny. This is Danny Jalil. Let's make him feel welcome. Now, Danny studied creative writing and screenwriting at LaSalle College of the Arts, and his novel, The Machine Boy, was a winner of the NAC Beyond Words Young and Younger Award. Not so young anymore. He wrote the graphic novels Lieutenant Adnan and The Last Regiment and Elizabeth Choi, and you can see here. Yeah, this is Lieutenant Adnan, and this is Elizabeth Choi. He has also published a historical novel, Enrique the Black, with Penguin Random House, Southeast Asia. And on my left is Clio Din. And you can see her bio here. Yeah. She's currently an art teacher with ACJC, right? And she has also published quite a few things internationally as well as locally. So let's make her feel welcome. So let's kick off by discussing the triggers that were given to you to inspire the story. So start with Danny. So what was your first thought when I approached you for that project?
The first thought was yes. Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Oh, you want to elaborate? Sorry.
Elaborate
Yeah.
lah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the first thing was because I worked with you prior to this, so the collaboration was very fun, enjoyable, and the approach for this was to merge your poem with one painting, right? So that idea was very interesting, and so it was very challenging to create that, and of course a lot of fun. Yeah.
For you, Clio?
Yeah, so when I first heard of this project, I was quite excited because I teach art, so I frequent the National Gallery quite a bit. So when I hear that there's an opportunity to combine comic with National Gallery artworks, yeah, of course I will say yes. The only uncertainty is perhaps poetry, because my background in language is not that strong. If not, I won't be drawing comics. So yeah, so when I first read the list of poems that Felix give us, a lot of it is quite difficult. So I have to ask my colleagues, what does this mean? And then I have to choose the easier ones. Yeah.
Not that difficult. Don't make me sound like I'm so esoteric.
Hope we have interpreted your poems correctly.
Yes, I mean, any interpretation, as far as I'm concerned, is always valid, right? So it depends on the reader's perception and how the words can be seen in a perspective, in a particular perspective. So why did you pick that particular poem? So for you, you pick Father and Son Part 2,
Yes.
which was a poem I wrote quite a number of years ago relating how my son had grown up and how I couldn't grasp his childhood anymore because he was no longer under my guidance or under my control. So as he was growing up, he became a teenager, he started growing older. So why did that resonate with you?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. But I think when I was trying to pick the poems, that's the one that metaphorically made me cry, I should say. Yeah. So that was the one that I felt most touching. Yeah, I was most touched by that poem. So I felt that was the strongest poem for me, at least, you know. So in each project I pick, I think I have to pick the one that makes me want to cry. Yeah. So once I have the proper emotional charge, right, I think it's very good to flow from that point on. Yeah.
So in fact, if you look at the table over there, Danny has brought the painting. I think this is the first page.
That's the cover page, basically, yeah.
Yeah, the cover page of his comic, and he did it as a painting, so we can take a closer look at it later when you buy the book, as you buy the book. And I hope you do buy the book. So that trigger was from your own relationship with your father, was that?
Certainly, yeah. I think everything that you do as an artist must come from a certain personal place and an emotional place. So, you know, generally speaking, I think all of us do have a love and a bit of frustration with all our parents. Right? We love them as much as you want to, you know. Yeah. So I think that one resonated with me quite well. So yeah, that's why, like I said, it is the only poem that made me want to go. I feel it. You know? Yeah.
How did you make that connection to that choice of painting? I think you chose which painting?
I chose the painting Dalam by S. Modir.
So why that particular painting?
It's at the back page, I think, at the right at the end. Yep. So I chose that particular painting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, from the list of paintings, actually, that painting just looked cool.
Is that all?
No, well, I mean, there's more than that. First of all, it does look cool. I like the color. Then I don't know whether that's the intention, but it looks like a monster. Right? I like monsters. I like aliens and stuff like that. So, and after seeing the picture, I read up about it, and dalam actually means deep in the Malay language. So it represents like underwater sea creatures at the depths of the ocean. Yeah, and
Yeah, in fact,
amongst other things. Yeah.
you're right. There's actually a face, some kind of monster face right in the middle of it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So from these two, you kind of extrapolated the monster figure and interpreted it as a kind of other presence that the father has to deal with?
Yes. So from that, I saw the motif of fish and under the sea. So I decided to turn the father into a fisherman. Yeah, and like you said, because this creature is a metaphorical monster. It doesn't exactly. It's not a real thing. It's just something that the father makes up. So in the story, the monster represents the father and his hatred, and also represents death at the end. Yeah.
Clio, how about yours? I think yours is a very interesting interpretation of my poem, Up in the Air. So the poem is about being left dangling, being left sometimes in suspension in some point in your life. There will always be a time when you're in limbo and you're in a rut. You can't get out of it. Did you see that?
Actually, you should read the poem first, because
okay, yeah, you can try reading poem.
I read. Oh, okay. Find in me hope, rope, a rope, to drape the dates yet to come, lately, belatedly. Wear it high and proud, as if you could rove and hover 2 feet above ground. Uplifting, the view of being in the air, the fair distance of always keeping something tight and dangling, wrangling, angling. This feeling might pass. I can't tell how long, strong or wrong, but it does not last. In the mean of the while meanings sort themselves out, and you feel out of sorts, you will see this will do. You do, I will, and we.
Well done. Thank you very much.
So when I first read the poem, I have to consult my colleague, like, what is he talking about? So from my interpretation, it seems like it's about, at first you have high hopes about something, but then you get disappointed, and then, feeling doesn't last, and then eventually you settle for maybe something that is not as good as you have expected. So that's my interpretation. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Is it a correct answer?
It's correct.
Okay.
Well, as I said, any interpretation is valid and correct at the same time. So what about this painting,
the painting
by Chong Su Ping? Why did you pick this one?
We were given a whole list of painting and a whole list of poems to choose from. And then my criteria for choosing painting is very simple. I want to draw fish. I like fish. So then I go for paintings with fish. There were only 2 paintings with fishes. The other one Danny took already. It's the dalam one with the dried fish.
He choked first.
Yeah, he
so
choked
he had first dips because he was very kiasu. In fact, he was the first illustrator to come back to me with his choice of poem and the choice of painting. So you were the first.
Sorry. I didn't know that. Okay.
Very Singaporean.
SGP.
Yeah, so how did you put 2 and 2 together to make a 10-page comic?
Yeah, so at first, this isn't my, is there a draft? Can we show the draft? Yeah. Yeah, so my story is actually the second draft. So the first idea that I pitched was more in line with what the poem is trying to express. A person being very hopeful when he or she was young, and then having grand hopes, and then when he or she gets older, you realize that life is not so rosy, and then there's this contrast between high achiever and then in the working world. Typical stuff, typical social commentary kind of stuff. So when I first submitted this draft, and then Felix says, not very exciting, because a lot of people tend to do this kind of social commentary, and then it gets very, generally not so exciting. And then I was eventually quite happy that I thought, since it's National Gallery, right, and then its paintings have to be proper, right? So then I was quite surprised when I pitched the second one, where I took it to an entirely opposite direction. So let's do something crazy, something action-packed. So I proposed, let's do a heist where a painting is stolen, and then in the middle there's some twist and some betrayal, which is then a very different tone from his original poem. But we have to understand the words in a more literal sense. For example, give me a rope. So what is the rope? What is the rope? So I think of superheroes putting on the rope, the mask, and then the rope is the climbing hook. go and climb the edges of the walls and then get access into the gallery and take the painting. Yeah, so I was a bit worried at first, like, oh yeah, gore and violence, that can show or not. National publication. But I was quite glad that I think Felix liked it, and then nobody says there's any issues with the content. Yeah, so basically that's how it went. Yeah.
In fact, I like the idea of how you have interpreted my poem, even though you said you didn't quite understand it. It was difficult. Wasn't that difficult? So, yeah, I think I like how you kind of constructed a whole high story around it, which I think we found quite refreshing, because none of the other illustrators thought of doing a high story. So quite an innovative way of interpreting the artwork as well as the poem itself. So let's move on to another question regarding whether you encountered any difficulties along the way, or was the easiest part of the process? What was the most difficult part?
Well, I think just the initial drafting of the story, that took a while. Because we had the idea for me, the Dalamon story was about the fish and the fisherman. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just since we're here, I'll just talk about this. Yeah. So these are like 10 paragraphs or 10 points. So each point represents a page in the story. So first, I had to think of what I want to say, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because this is an ever-evolving process. And then from those words, I did the thumbnails. Yeah, which is just the slide before this one. Yeah. So doing all the drafts and actually because creating the image it took a while, because even if I wrote one paragraph, how do you break down those words into pictures, right? That's always the challenge and the fun of making comics, turning words into pictures and turning those pictures into a kind of meaning. Yeah, so that took a while to figure out. Yeah.
In essence, to show and not tell, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Can I just say something about that? Because if you're writing a novel, of course everything is kind of tell because they're all words, right? But if you're doing a comic book, a lot of it is show because it's all pictures, right? Yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
Okay. For you, Clio?
For mine, because part of the condition of how to respond to the poetry and the painting is that either the painting has to be featured inside there, like you respond to the painting and the poetry simultaneously, or it has to be set in the National Gallery, right? So then I just set it in the National Gallery, and then it's a heist. So my browser history is very suspicious. I have to search escape route lah, then how the burglar have to run from the rooftop, because rooftop must have rooftop and helicopter chase, right? They're exciting, right? So then I go and Google what does it look like. There's this scene where it's sunset. You can identify some of the buildings. Yeah, so to get that location accurately, I have to do a lot of research to plan the escape route. And then sometimes I come here, I look at the window and say, is this window enterable with a grappling hook? And all that kind
Did any
of stuff.
security guard stop you
No.
because you were behaving suspiciously?
No.
No? So what was the easiest part?
The coloring is the
coloring.
easiest part. Because I just use this app called IBIS Paint X. I don't like Procreate. So IBIS Paint X, right, you just click and then use color bucket, fill. Yeah, so relatively, not say that is simple, but relatively to the other things like planning, drafting, and layout, right, coloring is the smoothest. Yeah.
So in addition to having these two triggers, a poem of mine and a painting from the National Gallery, I also put an extra limitation on the number of pages each artist can put together. It was 10. So everything to be done in 10 pages. I give a few of them leeway to do 12, but that's because some of them have spreads. That means a 2-page spread. So I was kind of tying their hands in different ways. Was that a challenge for you? Was that a big thing, having to finish the story within 10 pages?
Yeah, it's always a challenge because if you are, or let's say if I'm left to my own devices, I think I'll probably make the story a lot longer, right? But yeah, and then it is a very good challenge and a good discipline to try keep everything within that certain number of pages. So I think because there is this art form, I mean, if you want to call comics an art form, in the old days they used to have like these things called eight-page short stories. So at the back of, say, Batman or Spider-Man, there's another supplementary story that's only 8 pages. So they had to complete those stories in 8 pages. So the challenge of drawing that is actually to, how to say, like, make sure your panel flow is correct. Maybe you want to make a story last longer, you add more panels. If you want to make it go faster, you have less panels. So yeah, for your particular story, it was kind of just nice, I think. Yeah, probably the other challenge was really just trying to fit, because I think I did a few thumbnails which didn't work, so I redrew them again. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, trying to fit the story in 10 pages?
Oh, I have a way of breaking apart the pages. So I counted the lines in your poetry, and there were 15 lines, and it was separated into like different sentences. So then I have to plan for a 10-page story. The climax have to happen somewhere on page 4, and then the first page is cover page. So I have to see what is the line that have this climatic moment. So that line was uplifting the view of being in the air, and then dangling and all that, because what happens next is the feeling might pass. So that's the low point. So based on the rhythm of the poem, I have to plan the page in that way that the high point occurs, in a certain page. That's how I did it.
Sounds very mathematical to me. So that's how you figure out the page layout, by counting the number of lines and where the high point is.
Yeah,
and following the rhythm of the poem.
Yeah, and generally I'm used to reading manga type of stuff. So on average, there is not more than 6 to 8 panels per page. So then that helps with panel distribution as well. Yeah, and then one important thing of working with comics, right, is that you read not in just one page. You have to open up the book so that you read 2 pages simultaneously. And then you have to make sure that there is something interesting on the top, on the bottom right-hand corner, because that's a page turner. Yeah, so then have to plan in a way that the 2 pages facing each other are not entirely symmetrical, and then there has to be something nice on the last page that want you to, want to make you flip.
So that's like the punchline, right?
The
climax of the story.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thanks for that. So another limitation, well, not really a limitation, but a liberation that I gave the artists was to allow them to write captions as well. So they have to include my poem, lines from my poem, but at the same time, they can write their own captions in addition, or they can write speech bubbles. They can create speech bubbles for the characters. And I think yours was interesting because you didn't create any speech bubbles for any of the characters. Why was that?
Because a lot of words already, then you want to introduce more words, which is a different voice than, the diegetic cinema voice and a non-diegetic. So you have this narrator who is narrating the poem in a certain voice. Can you imagine Felix's voice? And then you have character dialogue, talking in a different voice. Then it doesn't really gel. So what I did was, a good comic should work without the blah blahs. The visuals should drive the narrative already. So if you were to take away all the words, and your stories still flow and people can still understand it, then I think that's what makes an interesting comic, rather than to rely on what people are saying. Yeah.
So visually, it should hang together on its own without the need for extra text or captions.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Also, because I'm not very good at language, then the dialogues I write tend to be a bit, not so poetic. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
For you added dialogue to what the characters say. How does that come about?
I think my approach was kind of the opposite of Clio's. It was probably 3 layers of, or maybe 4 if you include the visual. So your poem, there's some captions which actually are part of the characters talking, right? Like the first page, so what did you do, Pa? Right? And then there's the actual dialogue itself. So it's actually 3 layers. So like even when you watch a movie, there's a person narrating, and then there's another image, and there are 2 separate images, or 2 separate ideas, and then they can actually flow together. So, for example, like if you're watching a documentary, like let's say ants are the ants are building their nest or whatever, right? You don't say the ants are building their nest. You don't say something obvious. You say something opposite of that. So you say, well, during winter the ants save blah blah blah, right? Yeah. So I think that's diegetic. I'm not too sure the exact word, but yeah. So those kind of things. So if you have that kind of layer, I think it does give the story more depth, I guess. Yeah. So not just action, but dialogue, image. Caption, dialogue, image. So there's probably like multiple layers of the story. So that gives you the opportunity to like read the story again and again and again, and you might peel other layers as well, besides the actual images. Yeah, that's what I was trying for anyway.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Right. Now, at some point in the whole process, I gave them each about 6 months to 7 months, I think, to come up with the comic. At what point, or at some point, did you think, I've bitten off more than I can chew? Did you think that? Do you want to give up? Felix is too anal retentive. I don't want to work with him anymore. He's such a slave driver, cracking the whip.
No, you're very easy to work with.
Really?
All you said was, okay, this story is a bit too common, can you take it on another direction? So there wasn't any micromanaging, so as to say, like not like, oh, can you make this character smile a little bit more, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I think it's quite good to work with you.
Okay.
Yeah. So very smooth lah.
Okay, thank you. For you?
I don't think there was any breaking point. Yeah, like Clio said, you've been very collaborative and supportive of all our work. So I think nothing major. Just like minor nitpicks about spelling, grammar. I think I changed your poem a little bit. I didn't realize it. Right, I think right at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was about it. Yeah. So and I think that was about it. Yeah. Nothing major, and because like 6 months to do 10 pages is not too difficult. I think the thinking of the story was more difficult than the actual drawing of it. Because once you are drawing, you hopefully have the story set. You just need to make the images pop to life. Maybe it was just time consuming because of the coloring. Because mine was in full color, and thank you for that, because you let me go wild with. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So at this point, we are opening the floor to questions. But first, let me acknowledge some of the other illustrators who are here. Let's make Don Low feel welcome. I think we have Kia Sinan. Sinan is there. And the cover art is by Sam Lay. Sam is there. Who else is here? Fang Kai. Fang Kai is here. Fang Kai Lu. In fact, this is actually my first time meeting some of the illustrators. We correspond a lot by either Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. Yeah, so anyone else who's here? No? A few of the illustrators can't make it, unfortunately. So I might not see them. I might be able to meet them at some other point. All right, does anyone have questions about our collaboration, about how this project came about? It's a very interesting book because I think it's the first time we are using poetry and artwork as sources of inspiration, and for the artist to come up with a comic. So I think it's quite groundbreaking. I'm sure you have some questions to fire at us about our collaborative process, about how we chose the poems, or how they chose the poems.
Actually, can I ask something?
Yes,
now
please.
that it's the first time that I saw this book in print, so how do you decide on the size and then what paper to use, that kind of stuff? Yeah.
That I think I have to hand you over to Zhen Min.
This one maybe I will give to Jiamin then, as my
Oh, Zhen Min.
as the one other editor that worked very closely with all of us.
Just to introduce myself, I'm Jia Min, and I worked on this project along with Felix from the National Gallery. And in terms of that, I'm actually quite an avid comic reader myself, and I buy a lot of trade paperbacks. So I was quite insistent when I was first introduced to this project that it has to be in trade paperback form, and tried to follow the sort of I mean, unfortunately, it's a bit of an American size, but I do think that it's the size that's the most compact and the easiest for people to handle, and I thought that would make it a lot more appealing for anyone who would want to pick it up and just browse through and, hey, maybe I'll take a shot of this book. So the feel of it and the size of it was quite important, and I think I stressed that quite early on. So yeah, I think that's about it.
I think we did learn a lot of things, I think, along the way, I think, regarding the production of the book. And even, I think, when we were talking to, like, people out there, like RJ Papers, for example, they all got very excited and were, like, telling me that there was comic paper, that a different kind of paper. For those of you who do come to the museum regularly, you know that when we do our exhibition catalogs, it's actually very high-grade paper. So for us, trying to understand how to make a comic book as well was really, I think, a learning process. I think really talking to different people that we're not so used to as part of trying to put this book together.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time the National Gallery has come up with a comic book.
We have another comic book that we did years ago for Georgia Chen.
Oh yeah, I
which
remember
is also
that, by
quite
Sunny Liu,
popular.
right?
Yes, and of course we do a series for children as well. But a book of this kind, I think, is really, yes, is a really experimental piece, I think, for us. And even we were not sure what it would look like at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I think we did enjoy putting it together. We really enjoyed meeting all of you as well, although I think most of us corresponded by emails. So I think we do hope that, of course, after this event, then at least when we all have the chance to get to know each other better and we live as friends, maybe there might be new projects that we can work on together in future as well, I think. And of course, for everybody to get to know each other along the way as well, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Consideration of the sequencing of the different poems and the different illustrations.
Or how we sequence the order. Well, I propose a particular sequencing, starting with Clio's comic about the gallery, starting with the gallery itself as the site of where the story begins. And then the comics kind of follow certain thematic thread of, say, stories to deal with father and son, or family relationships, or the breakdown of relationships. Then it graduates towards something more hopeful towards the end. So there was a kind of gradual changing or gradual thematic shifts. The stories kind of align themselves quite readily into different types or different themes, which eventually became pulled together. And that was how we arranged it. We didn't force or give the artists any particular themes to follow, so it's up to them to come up with whatever they had in mind based on the poem that was chosen as well as the painting that was chosen.
I have a question.
Yes.
I thought the idea is very original. I haven't flipped the book yet, but I will get by later. I'm just curious from your point of view, or from Felix and the collaborators. Do you think this book is more for people who love to read comics, or people who love poems, or you're going to target new audiences like myself, who, I'm sorry, I'm not a comic book reader, but that I might pick up this book because I love poems and other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, all of the above. So yeah, one reason why we put together painting, comics, as well as poetry is to find different audiences, so that we don't end up working in silos. Comic artists only draw for comic audiences, poetry writers only write poems for poetry lovers, and artworks are only drawn and for a certain audience. So we're trying to pull together different influences so that overall you can find something poetic in the comics that you don't find in, say, a Marvel or DC comic. You also have influences from the art world that you don't find in also Marvel or DC comics. So hopefully it will bring different audiences together. At least that's what we hope to achieve with this book.
I can add on to that as well. So here in the National Gallery, we do have one area of work that actually focuses very strongly on interdisciplinary kind of approaches. So I think trying to make art, I think, relevant and also connect, I think, with the areas in all the other fields itself, I think is something that we often look at. And in fact, there's actually a couple of interdisc performances going on today as well in the other parts of the building. So if any of you are hoping to spend the afternoon here, you could also spend a bit of time exploring our gallery and some of the programs. But I think it's actually a challenge, I think, for us just to look beyond our boundaries. That's what Felix said, not to be siloed. And at the same time, maybe also a challenge to our fellow creators as well, that they may have an opportunity to look at the area of work in a totally different way. So I think that's why we were hoping that this project could give such an opportunity for everyone too.
So coming back to our two panelists, how has this project changed the way you look at poetry and comics?
I think there are a lot of common things there in all these different art forms, but we usually see them very separately and then appealing to different kinds of target audience, which is not true. But the essence is poetry, it kind of tells a story or conveys an idea sequentially, just the same as comics. You use pictures to tell a story sequentially. And then as for painting, of course, there is those paintings that are more abstract. So how do you interpret an abstract painting? What if the poetry itself is not so direct and obvious? So there's always this connection between them, which is why I think the title is very aptly called Only Connect. And I love the cover page done by Sam. Like you can see that, it's very apt for this theme, connecting everything together. And then I think all these are the artists that are trying to plug themselves into the whole. Yeah.
Danny, how does this change your way of looking at poetry?
Yeah, well, personally, I've been writing more poetry. My classmates can attest to that. Yeah. Also, like I just think it's an interesting thing. I wanted to say that my previous collaboration with you was slightly a different, opposite experience, because yours initially I was adapting your short story, which is large, right?
Yep.
Into compressing it into like 10 pages. Yeah. This is at least in the terms of converting it to a comic book, right? The short story was a matter of compression, while the poetry was a matter of expansion.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I never saw it that way.
Yeah, because like initially I think I was discussing with you about the 10th floor, which is your short story. We had to cut a lot of bits to make it fit into the comic. While this one was like there's more room for expansion actually. I just want to highlight an example, but I think like if you adapt like say a book, right? A large book into a movie, you have the same problem of compression. You have to compress a large book into 2 hours. While I've seen like some short stories being adapted into a movie and they've become much better because of it, because there's a matter of expansion. Yeah, that's what I learned anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the room for imagination here is relevant, because you imagine things when you read a poem. You look at a painting, you also imagine things that are not just inside the painting, but something else as well. And then for comics, you read in between the panels. You got to imagine what is happening inside, in between. Yeah.
So sometimes the unspoken is more interesting, right?
Yep.
The undrawn, unwritten, unspoken can
so
be...
there's some space in your mind, your interpretation, that adds on to what you see. Yeah.
I suppose that's what you might call ownership of the text. So the reader, by filling in the gaps, using your own imagination, you own the work, because now it becomes yours. You have created the backstory or fill in the gaps where the story doesn't tell you so much. So then you own it. Whereas if, as artists and writers, we sometimes create those gaps for you to fill in.
I think in this present day and age, right, there's less of these kind of things where you have to do a bit of brain work. I think was it Marshall McLuhan who mentioned about the cold and hot medium, and then he says that comic is a cold medium, and then film is a hot medium or something like that, very, very long ago. So the idea is that there are some art form, right, that you have to do the hard work of looking, reading, and then thinking. And then there are some that you just sit there passively and you scroll. Yeah, so I think this is a rare chance for those who maybe are not that even into painting or poetry or comic, right, to pick up and then see what this kind of form of art is different from the stuff that we consume on a daily basis.
And in fact, to answer your question, in my own writing practice, I've also tried to blend or merge poetry with comics. So my past couple of graphic novels have tried to merge poetry, the poetic form, and find its way into a comic book form and see how that marriage works. If it doesn't, well, at some point there will be a divorce lah. Any other questions? Yes. Sequel. We have to ask the National Gallery if there's a chance or possibility for a sequel.
We haven't had any plans yet, but we will definitely keep this in mind. If anything, we do have a few other books, though they're not comic related, but we do have another book coming out that's actually also a relationship between poetry and art. I think that will be out in January next year.
Oh,
so,
okay.
of course, we do encourage everybody to keep an eye out for that book coming out. But the comics one, definitely, I think that's something that we might be interested to see what we can do in future. So if anybody has any ideas, well, please always feel free to approach us as well. Thank you.
Don, you wanted to ask something? You raise your hand. No. Any comments about the book, about the process of working on this book?
Oh, it was my third attempt. Yes, I did a few to go with your poem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't that smooth sailing. And I thought it was the easiest because it looked like the shortest. That's why I took it out. And it turned out to, I think I had 1 power page for you, or 2 pages. My story anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it turned out well.
So you see the QC is actually very strict. So, we curate the stories. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we do tell the illustrators how come the story doesn't work, why it doesn't work. Maybe you'd like to go back to the drawing board and reconsider.
Yeah, I think that's part of the process, which I advise all artists must take it to heart that it's part of the process.
Yes.
It comes with the territory.
Thank you. Don, say something. Kent, you have a question? After Don.
I really enjoyed this project, and when Felix approached me to do this project, I was like, oh wow, this is good, because I have not interpreted a poem, and then in addition, I need to interpret another painting, and to incorporate them into a story. That's a part that attracted me the most, which is really, really challenging. And it's not and then I need to come up with a story to fit into the poem, and then also to use the artwork at the same time. So that's the most fun part to me, according to for this project. Yes.
Most fun or most frustrating?
I think being frustrated in the process is always the funnest part of the whole thing. Yes.
Oh, that's something new.
Yes.
Being frustrated is the funnest part.
Because if you don't, then creativity is always like that. See, so creativity is always bringing two things unrelated, and then you come up with something that's unique and original. So that's the biggest challenge that I love. Thank you.
I suppose we can draw from this the fact that when it is too easy, then it's not so creative. Right? When you're in your comfort zone, you're doing it comes too easily, maybe you should challenge yourself a bit more, push the edge a bit more, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Fang Kai, you want to add something? Oh, sorry, Ken.
Thank you. Hi, Felix. Good to see you again. My question is somewhat related to Don's comment. I like the spirit that you don't want to do things that are too easy, right? So beyond this, and beyond a sequel that is similar to this format, like comic book and poetry, painting, what other ideas, thoughts do you harbor? Okay, or do you have, right, going forward, assuming this is going to be very successful, very well received, not just at National Gallery, but Singapore and maybe Asia-wide? Yeah, like poetry and, or writings and, what other forms of creative arts do you see your poetry, blend or integrate with others?
Well, you can always, if you can find like-minded collaborators, I think that'll be great. You can do, for example, a poetry and dance collaboration. or poetry, dance, and music, or poetry, dance, music, and say a visual medium. So it's endless possibilities.
Okay, maybe since many of us here are here for comics, and myself as an illustrator who also illustrate for poems. So do you see this going beyond this to an animation or short films?
Any animators here? You might like to animate a couple of the stories here?
Not
Yeah,
the
possible.
grok, not the AI type.
Yeah, as long as it's not AI generated. Yeah, Fang Kai, would you like to say a few words about the collaborative process?
Yeah, I also went through a round of changes to the story. So,
This is actually my first time meeting Fang Kai. We've corresponded quite a few times on Facebook Messenger.
yeah, I did a cover for Felix's other book.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vanishing Point, which was a comic interpretation of his short stories. Yeah. So this comic thing has been a recent exploration of yours, right? Is there any reason why comics in particular? Were you a big comic fan growing up?
Yes, I was a big comic fan growing up. I used to read a lot of Batman, Superman, Iron Man, Fantastic Four, and so on. Also Lao Fuzi, if you are familiar with Lao Fuzi, way back, and No Fu Wen, you know, the martial arts one. But as I grew older, I lost touch with comics. I think I stopped reading comics when I was in my teens, and I only picked it up more recently. So when I started gravitating towards comics, I was trying to find a way, a narrative medium that was different from other narrative mediums. Trying to find a voice that could be poetic, but at the same time could still be integrated into the comic book form. So that was why I tried transplanting my poems, my poetry into the form, into a graphic novel, and seeing whether this experiment can work, this combustion between poetry and comics. That was how I got into it. All right, we have time for one last question, and later we can have the illustrators sitting over there. If you'd like us to sign the books, we are more than happy to do so. Last question. Please don't be a typical Singapore audience. Okay. Jeff.
From start to finish, from conception to now, how long did this book take?
It took about a year and a half because there were breaks in between. We had other projects to take care of, and I think there was...
yeah, I think when we first started talking about it would have been probably early last year. I think.
Early last year?
That would be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I think when we started to reach out to all the different illustrators, reconfirm whether you're with us on this journey, and things like that. I think by the time we managed to settle with most of you, it would be happened probably about third quarter of last year. You mean for the illustrators?
I can probably enlighten that. You're talking about hours, right? Well, hours is very difficult to define because, like, sadly, we all have day jobs. So, yeah. So whenever we're free, right? So maybe a couple. Let's say per day, right? At least 2 hours, maybe 3 if I have the luxury of time and if I'm not too sleepy, right? So maybe per week, if you divide that, maybe 15 hours, maybe per week, maybe if I have time. Yeah, but then of course you have to extrapolate that over a period of months. So literally hundreds of hours probably, right? I think so. Yeah, definitely around that ballpark, just to create what you saw. Yeah.
How about you?
I think back then when you were doing the pitching, right, we had this pitching phase where we have to submit the first 4 pages.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's
first
right.
4 pages, and then so it was like there were deadlines in between. If not, we would just slack across the 6 months, and then last day chung all the pages. Yeah, so that's unfortunately how myself works. So initially chung the 5 pages, then take breaks. But in between the break, I was thinking how to resolve the story, and then last minute go and chung more.
Yes, I having worked with illustrators before, I know their thinking process and how they are procrastinators by inclination. So that's why I had to build in a few deadlines to kind of usher them towards finishing the product. Otherwise, they will, as Clio says, Cheong only at the very last minute.
Do you have to scold the late people who never submit on time?
Well, very gently. Turn the screws a little bit.
Yeah. Hi, Felix.
Yep.
Sorry, one more question.
Yes.
This question is for you because you asked the same question to the two of panelists. Yeah. Did you have a breaking point? A point where you are not just like mengzeng, very frustrated, but you even doubted the project?
Well, since I initiated the project, I thought I would need to see it to the end. Maybe once or twice, when the illustrators were a little bit naughty, we're not finishing
Not me.
or submitting, the drafts. But okay lah. I mean, overall, it's more like coordination work, trying to get everybody together.
But you never doubted this art form because it's experimental.
No.
No.
I believe in it. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time and for being here.